it really shouldn't be this hard. What is it about the Fantastic Four that makes them so hard to bring to screen? Is it the costumes, the flying car, Mr. Fantastic's cartoonish, stretchy powers? Or is it just the silly name? Now, on the surface level, there's really nothing all that silly about their looks or even their powers. I mean, not really any more so than, say, Spider-Man, or even a rich dude who dresses up like a bat.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
With the new Fantastic Four first steps in theaters, I think it's high time we look back at exactly what tripped up Marvel's first family.
Pitiful. You are pitiful.
Now, the first attempt, if we really want to call it that, was all the way back in 1994. Less of an authentic adaptation and more of a low-budget attempt by producer Bernd Eichinger to preserve the rights of the franchise. It's what the industry lovingly calls an ashcan copy, when a low-effort film is released right at the expiration date when the rights would revert back to the owner, which, in this case, is, of course, Marvel. The movie would be funded by B-movie legend Roger Corman of Death Race 2000 and Little Shop of Horror fame. He would give them a minuscule little budget of around only $1 million, and Eichinger would successfully trick a handful of actors into thinking they'd been cast in a legitimate movie. The Fantastic Four scrapped together Halloween-worthy costumes, bottom-of-the-barrel action choreography, and a bare-bones script that fast-tracked the origin story, and honestly, it worked. Well, not the movie. The movie was terrible, but Eichinger managed to get the cameras rolling just in time, just a few days before the rights would have expired. The movie, predictably, is an absolute disaster, though some have found charm in it for trying to be just earnestly faithful to the comics, or really just finding the pocket change production endearing. I think they'll most recognize this for the trashy B cinema that it is. It features a Doctor Doom who rattles like a tin can but speaks every line like they were written by Shakespeare himself.
And a little insurance. Unbearable hatred for you, Reed, for turning me into this.
I mean, he's clearly having a great time. It had a comic-accurate version of the Mole Man, a jeweler. It turns out they didn't even have the rights to use Mole Man and changed his name to a totally different character. Totally not the Mole Man. It has what is perhaps some of the greatest special effects ever put to screen. Ace action scenes.
What am I supposed to do with these guys?
And I think some of the best line reading you will ever hear. Just great stuff.
Look at me!
It is good for a bad movie night, I will give it that. Fun is fun, but I think Marvel, when they caught wind of this, decided they were going to do everything possible to keep this catastrophe from tarnishing the brand. You know, kind of in the same way that the 1990s Captain America had. Yeah, I would say the 1990s weren't exactly kind to Marvel. Our favorite producer Avi Arad showed up with a briefcase full of money and paid Eichinger to never let this movie see the light of day. Not exactly money well spent considering you can watch it just on YouTube. Avi Arad may have not been the best messenger in this case, given that he would oversee plenty of Marvel films that would probably give this one a run for its money in terms of quality. Madam Web, anyone? I mean, between this and Madam Web, I'm not exactly sure which one I would take.
Where's my spider? They took my spider.
Arad bought the film for a few million and ordered all prints confiscated and destroyed. But Eichinger still retained the rights, and he wasn't done running this property through the mud quite yet. He would team up with Avi Arad, and after 8 long years of development hell, they would finally produce the big budget film that he'd always dreamed of. This was with the 2005's Fantastic Four. In the case of Arad, I guess he decided that if you can't beat him, join him. 2005's Fantastic Four had big action, big spectacle, and okay returns. Now, some people over the years, I guess, have decided in retrospect this is now a good movie. I will just have you know up front that I am not one of those people.
That's terrible news. I think I'll get a second opinion.
This thing is almost as big of a mess, just in different ways. During production, it went through almost as many directors as the Flash movie. These included Chris Columbus, Peter Segal, Sam Wiseman, Raja Gosnell, Peyton Reed from Ant-Man fame, and even Samwise Gamgee.
It's me! It's your Sam!
They finally settled on Tim's story, And honestly, this guy's timing could not have been worse. See, this came out just after just a little film from Pixar in 2004. It too had a family of superheroes, a visual style based on the artwork of Jack Kirby, and featured a character who could stretch, a character with invulnerability and super strength, and a character who could turn invisible and create force fields. Oh yeah, and a baby with mysterious abilities who could, dare I say it, turn into a human torch? What are the odds? What are the chances of this happening? I'm sure it was just all one big coincidence. Yet Pixar kind of came in and stole Tim Story's thunder by creating what is perhaps the best Fantastic Four movie of all time. And they did it without ever featuring any of the actual real Fantastic Four. How Pixar never got sued for any of this, I'll never know. Scratch that, I actually do know. So how did Story react to The Incredibles pulling the rug out from under him? Well, by making changes to his movie to make it less like The Incredibles. In other words, less like the Fantastic Four. Now, the 2005 version did a serviceable job with the origin, especially when it came to Ben Grimm and his arc of accepting his new fearsome Rockman form. Most of the cast did a pretty good job with what they had, except for perhaps the weak link with Jessica Alba, who is truly terrible in this movie.
That's my nose, Genius. These are my lips.
Victor, you always thought you were a god.
Susan, let's not fight.
No, let's.
Pitiful. You are pitiful.
It's not entirely her fault. The movie was burdened by a script that was cluttered with cliches, unfunny jokes, and just more cringe-inducing moments than you could shake a stick at. My favorite part of this one probably has to be where they save a bunch of people on the bridge. Sorry, did I say save? I meant they were the ones who kind of blew up the bridge and put everyone in danger in the first place. Yet everyone applauds them like a bunch of idiots. I feel like J. Jonah Jameson here, okay? Stop cheering them. Prosecute them. But the biggest problem was it had no real stakes. The bulk of the second act is left aimless with a series of montages that involve testing their powers and just endless team bickering. There's zero momentum forward. Now, you do have a villain in Doctor Doom, but he doesn't really take a batty turn until the third act. He offers little in the way of conflict. He's also transformed from a super genius ruler of a foreign country with a suit of armor and magic to a complete butchery of the source, reduced to a rich dude with metal skin and electro powers.
It's my birthday. Now it's time for me to light my candles.
They took a lot of liberties compared to his comic counterpart. He's a character so lacking in menace that he only has really one confrontation with the team, and he's pretty handedly defeated in about 5 minutes.
Your company's in the obituaries?
The board's in agreement. The bank's lost enough already.
Do you know how much money I've invested in this company?
You know how much I sacrificed?
Norman, the board is unanimous.
You're out, Norman.
We're pulling out.
Out, am I?
Despite the lack of enthusiasm, the movie made just enough to greenlight a sequel in the significantly more competent Rise of the Silver Surfer. Now, don't get me wrong, the movie is still very cheesy. It's filled with bad dialogue.
The city's trying to charge us for 3 squad cars they say we destroyed. I only remember 2 squad cars getting thrown.
Has countless cliches, and is full of cringy 2000s superhero moments. But my favorite thing would probably be the Silver Surfer's magic exposition abs. Yes, that is a thing, a new power that we'd never heard of. The comedy in this one is ramped up as even the director apparently couldn't take it completely seriously. Yet at least this one had some fun action to pad out the runtime, while Julian McMahon got to ham it up as a more menacing Doctor Doom.
Let's all go for spin!
The real star here, though, was the comic-accurate Silver Surfer, who genuinely had some great action set pieces, all in service of a very not comic-accurate Galactus. The film is not really what I'd call good, but at least it's not an unpleasant watch, which, as sad as it is a massive step above most other attempts at this franchise. And although I did like some of the action set pieces, I do have a hard time getting around the big plot hole of if the Silver Surfer only served Galactus to keep him from destroying his planet, yet all along he had the power to kill Galactus, why didn't he just kill Galactus at any point? Get it over with. Problem solved. Again, it's not the most watertight script. Worse yet, these two movies still lived in the shadow of Pixar. The Incredibles was a film so successful in capturing the spirit and world of Jack Kirby that Story's rendition was always doomed to be compared to it. As a result, the duology was met with hostility in the early 2000s, dismissal in the 2010s, and this weird sense of nostalgic historical rewriting in the 2020s. Despite a bigger budget and better reviews, Silver Surfer made less than the previous film, and producers rightfully lost confidence in the franchise. This led to one of Hollywood's favorite tricks in these mid-2010s, the dark and gritty reboot. But do you want to know what will never have a dark and gritty reboot? Well, this channel, of course. So be sure to like and subscribe.
I've been so conflicted and unhappy all this time and never even knew it.
Never felt more emotionally complex. I don't know who I am anymore! Snap out of it!
You may notice that The Dark Knight gets brought up a lot in my videos. Its massive success was the cause of a lot of failures as producers took all the wrong lessons from it. They thought they could just reboot everything with a new dark coat of paint. And director Josh Trank saw the unique opportunity to take the bright Fantastic Four and wanted to paint it black.
No colors anymore, I want them to turn black.
Now, if there's one franchise I would say should never have a dark and gritty reinterpretation, it would probably be Blue's Clues, but I think Fantastic Four would be a close second. I'm not even sure how this got greenlit to begin with. Reportedly, the producers and investors had a panic attack when they saw the dailies and the grim tone. Did no one see the pitch for this or read a script? That should have been pretty evident from the get-go. In this version, the Fantastic Four are reinvented as a bunch of moody college kids trying to crack interdimensional travel. Now, the first act may be passable as a Stranger Things that's barely recognizable from the source, but from there, the film pivots into a second act inspired by body horror films like The Fly. And even saying that just sounds really stupid, okay? You have our cheerful heroes writhing in pain on lab tables and horrified at their disgusting mutations. But if that's not your thing, then don't worry, because the film pivots again, this time into a dark commentary on the American military-industrial complex. And if that's not your speed, the movie finally settles on the final act with a generic superhero punch-up. This is honestly one of the worst superhero movies ever made. Full stop. Complete with a stupid name. Now, technically it is just called Fantastic Four, but the marketing decided to stylize it as Fanforstic, and that dumb name really did stick. The only reason the ending feels like a superhero movie at all is because Josh Trank made the decision to double tap his career in the head to make sure it was really dead. Trank came out of the gate swinging with his debut film Chronicle, a great mix of superheroes and Akira, a film about 3 kids who become psychics and our protagonist slowly descends into villainy. Add in the found footage gimmick that was popular at the time, and you had something that was really unique to the genre. It also happened to serve as a breakout role for one Michael B. Jordan, who would reteam with Trank as Johnny Storm. Luckily, his career did survive Fanforstic. Josh Trank was not so lucky. First of all, I want to say again, I don't want to put the blame entirely on him. He did have a lot of blame, but not all of it. Once again, this was a film that was fast-tracked to keep the rights. He's also accused the studio of mass interference. And in return, the studio has accused Trank of crashing residencies and showing up late to set, being unable to make his days. And it could have all ended there like many movies with creative differences. But Trank just couldn't leave it alone. On the day of the release, upon mounting negative reviews, Trank, like many wounded souls, just couldn't keep his mouth shut. He shot out a tweet on how he had a better version of the film that would have gotten great reviews if it hadn't been for studio meddling. I don't think that Fox really appreciated that too much. It became the final nail in his own coffin. This is Hollywood, okay? You can recover from being a creative prima donna, okay? That comes with the territory. What you can't survive is tanking a movie's entire marketing and release. Trank likely lost the studio maybe tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions. I don't know, okay? I don't run the numbers. And he did it all with one tweet. Whether it was true or not, it doesn't matter. And it gets worse. That one tweet reportedly caused Disney to fire Trank off their Boba Fett film. And just like that, the young director became an industry outcast. It's game over, man. So what can we take away from all this? What can we learn from all these many failures of the Fantastic Four? Why has this team had such a hard time in live action? And how has the dreaded curse finally been broken? I'd say the through line on this franchise failure was, as usual, on the production level, trying desperately to produce unfinished material to keep the rights. There was never a clear vision or motivation beyond that. Even with the Tim Story version, they had to pay to extend the rights in order to get past the development hell. He was a director brought in late after a string of other directors left the project. He inherited this hodgepodge of various ideas, and I think he did struggle to find a pulse with that first film. Now, he found confidence in the sequel, but the damage was already done. In each version, no one really seemed to know how to make this team click. It is strange then that these 4 failures each got at least one ingredient right amidst all their face plants. The Fantastic Four from 1994 leaned in on the earnestness and unflinching faithfulness to the source material. Fantastic Four 2005 understood the importance of a strong cast with good chemistry. Not you, Alba, okay? I'm sorry, you're not included. Rise of the Silver Surfer found that the more comic booky, faithful elements trumped modern reinterpretations. Even Fantastic was the only film to really lean in on a family dynamic in some form, however half-hearted it may have been.
All I want to know is where are my children?
The ingredients were all there. They were just spread out over different movies. And this is maybe where Marvel Studio brings that all together to triumph. In one of their best films since Endgame, First Step finally delivers an interpretation that knows everything that made the comics popular. It knew those singular elements that worked from the other films and knew to chuck everything else out. Like Pixar, this is a movie that takes full inspiration from Jack Kirby's distinctive comics with the 1960s aesthetic, creating a unique world that separates it from the many other superhero fares, especially with ongoing superhero fatigue within the industry. Thankfully, unlike a lot of modern action films, the visual effects here look pretty polished and fully realized, excluding, of course, a certain CGI baby. Please stop putting CGI babies in movies. They always look extremely creepy. Just don't do it. When you think about doing it, just don't. Don't do it. But, kind of pushing that to the side, this was finally a Marvel movie that stepped back from the usual CGI slop with action and effects that felt like they had purpose, each sequence feeling unique to the next. First Steps embraces the outlandish, the feeling of 60s science fiction serials, where 1 minute our heroes are saving the world, and then the next they're exploring the great unknowns of space. And then they return home to have this big debate on if they should feed a baby to a giant purple alien. It does this without any shame. If all this seems a little silly, well, so be it. Walk with confidence. Flying cars, subterranean mole men, stretchy men, magic babies, all of it's treated without the usual Marvel comedic beats, but instead with full earnestness and a belief that the audience will buy into it. Marvel also knew they needed a killer cast. Despite doubts in Pedro Pascal, he delivers a soft-spoken Reed who exudes intelligence and a quiet calm. He may be even slightly on the spectrum, as his mind's constantly occupied with worst-case situations and how to prevent it. Vanessa Kirby brilliantly plays a Sue Storm who knows how to handle her eccentric husband, and is the glue keeping this entire family together, as she is forced to navigate newfound motherhood. Johnny is as fun-loving as ever while being less abrasive than previous versions. He's a hothead ruled by his passions instead of just being a jock idiot. Ben Grimm may be the one who has perhaps less of an arc than his other cinematic versions. That does help him to feel less like a bummer and buzzkill, but he doesn't have as much going on. He has found an acceptance in his role and only has more of a sad regret. I'm not exactly sure why, because he can still definitely rock a sharp suit. Here he's presented as an adoptive brother who is just kind of happy to have found his family. This is a film that more than anything knew that the Fantastic Four is about family. I often, well, maybe not often, but occasionally wonder what Tim Story cut out of his 2005 version. Did he have stronger family elements? The Incredibles, they knew what they were doing, okay? They were trying to make a Fantastic Four movie without the rights. Brad Bird knew the secret recipe all the way back in 2004. That's not really a good excuse for any director to shy away from it out of fear of comparison. It's actually a better reason to embrace it. Fantastic Four is not stealing from The Incredibles. Let's be honest here. The Incredibles stole from the Fantastic Four. Pixar doesn't get to have a patent on the family superhero team. Director Max Chapman, he didn't really have a lot of directing credits before he took on the phenomenally underrated WandaVision, a show with a retro vibe that explored how failure to process grief in a healthy way can turn you into a villain. Here he tells the story of a family, but what happens when you face the choice to sacrifice family for the greater good. I'm starting to think that Matt Shakman's, he must have been a mama's boy, because like WandaVision, it brings in strong themes of motherhood. Many, including myself, weren't really on board for a gender swap with a female Silver Surfer. Now, relax, comic readers. I know there's a Silver Surfer who's female in the comics. Okay, I got that. Okay, I've heard it. But you know what I mean. The choice here felt purposeful to reflect Sue's dilemma, where she must choose between her planet or her child. The Silver Surfer had to face a very similar choice, and she made it and accepts it, choosing to be complicit in far worse disasters, all to protect her loved ones. Shackman is going all in on this analogy of what happens when a new member enters a family. The fear of messing it up, the fear of what comes next, and the fear that you'll have to make sacrifices. That is the basis of 2025's Fantastic Four. A family changed by a new arrival, except set to an outlandish cosmic scale. I think Marvel, though, has perhaps cultivated a real talent here. A director that remembers what worked for the MCU in their golden age, how to take things in a little bit more of a earnest direction, and how to create a fantastical story but grounded in the relatable human element. I really am excited to see what he does next. For now, though, I'm satisfied to finally get to see one of the greats of comics done justice on the big screen. There are bumps in the road with, of course, the CGI baby, a somewhat emaciated runtime, and heavy exposition. But any of these complaints, they just pale in the face of the likable, relatable characters, the creative world, and themes of new family fears. I think that Fantastic Four does a good job of strip mining what came before for what worked, while discarding all the failures. And that's all I have for this one. Once again, please subscribe for more historical film flashbacks and modern movie analysis. As always, keep those reels turning. Thank you.